Some people move through the world like ghosts in their own lives. They speak softly, if they speak at all. They position themselves at the edges of groups, near doorways, in corners where the light doesn't quite reach. They've perfected the art of taking up minimal space, physically, vocally, emotionally. But if you watch closely, you'll notice something paradoxical. These are often people with profound depths, with thoughts that could fill novels, with feelings that run deeper than most conversations ever go. These are people who feel unseen. And that feeling isn't just an occasional experience, it's a lens through which they've learned to interpret their entire existence. They enter rooms differently than others. There's a hesitation, a quick scan to assess where they might fit without disrupting the existing dynamics. In meetings, they sit in positions that feel safe, rarely at the head of the table, often in seats that allow them to observe without being observed. In social gatherings, they gravitate toward the periphery, engaging in one-on-one conversations rather than commanding the attention of groups. They've become experts at reading rooms, at sensing the emotional temperature of spaces, at knowing when their contribution might be welcomed and when it might dissolve into the air unacknowledged. Watch them in conversations and you'll see a distinct pattern. They begin to speak, then pause, checking if anyone is actually listening. If they're interrupted, which happens often, they don't fight to reclaim the floor. They simply stop, their words hanging incomplete in the space between intention and expression. They've learned that their voice occupies a frequency others don't seem tuned to hear. So they adjust. They speak less. They wait for the perfect moment that rarely comes. And when they do share something meaningful, they often deliver it so quietly, so tentatively, that it gets lost in the noise of more confident voices. To outsiders, it might seem like shyness or introversion or simple lack of confidence. But that's not what's actually happening. What most people don't understand is that this isn't just social anxiety or natural temperament. This is learned invisibility, a deeply embedded psychological adaptation that developed as a response to systematic emotional neglect or dismissal. Psychologically, this is what attachment theorists call ambivalent invisibility, a survival strategy where making oneself small becomes the safest way to navigate relationships. Their nervous system adapted to an environment where being seen often meant being criticized, dismissed, or burdened with needs they couldn't meet. Perhaps they grew up in a family where a sibling's needs overshadowed theirs. Perhaps their parents were physically present but emotionally absent, going through the motions of care without ever truly seeing the child before them. Perhaps their early attempts at expression were met with indifference, or worse, with a message that their feelings were inconvenient, their needs too much, their very presence somehow burdensome. So they learned. They learned that safety lives in the shadows. That love, whatever version of it they could access, came more reliably when they didn't ask for it directly. That the way to avoid disappointment was to expect nothing. That the way to maintain connection, however thin, was to become whatever others needed them to be, erasing themselves in the process. It's a learned response, and like all learned responses, it serves a purpose, even when that purpose has outlived its usefulness. The child who learned that quiet compliance kept the peace becomes the adult who can't advocate for themselves in a salary negotiation. The teenager who discovered that invisibility protected them from a parent's unpredictable moods becomes the partner who can't express their needs in intimate relationships. Here's what's really happening beneath the surface. When they enter a situation where they might be noticed, where someone asks their opinion, where they have something important to contribute, where being seen is unavoidable, their nervous system activates an ancient alarm. Their heart rate increases. Their thoughts become cluttered with self-monitoring. Am I talking too much? Do they actually want to hear this? Am I being too intense? Their body tenses with the physiological signature of threat, even though the situation itself is benign. They're not consciously choosing to diminish themselves. They're responding to an internal experience that screams danger at the prospect of visibility. Their system has encoded a fundamental equation. Being seen equals being vulnerable. Being vulnerable equals being hurt. Therefore, invisibility equals safety. This is what psychologists call core shame, not shame about something they did, but shame about who they fundamentally are. It's the internalized belief that there is something inherently wrong, unworthy, or too much about their essential self. This isn't narcissistic self-focus, it's the opposite. It's a deep-seated conviction that they matter less than others, that their inner world is somehow less valid, less interesting, less worthy of space and attention. In their inner world, there's a constant narrative running. No one really wants to hear this. I'm probably boring them. They're just being polite. If they knew what I really thought, what I really felt, they'd be disappointed or overwhelmed, or they'd leave. This narrative isn't dramatic or loud. It's quiet, persistent, like a hum they've learned not to notice consciously, but that colors every interaction with a subtle gray filter. But here's where it gets complex. The same mechanism that once protected them from overwhelming disappointment now prevents them from experiencing genuine connection. They become incredibly skilled at observation, at empathy, at reading the subtle emotional cues others miss. They're often the ones who notice when someone else is struggling, who remember the small details about people's lives, who can hold space for others' pain with remarkable depth. Yet they quietly struggle with the belief that this empathy is one-directional, that they can offer it endlessly to others but shouldn't expect it in return. It's not that they don't want to be seen, known, understood. It's that their entire system is wired to prioritize others' comfort over their own existence. What looks like selflessness is actually a complex form of self-protection. If they don't exist too loudly, they can't be rejected for who they truly are. They develop what appears to be incredible patience and adaptability. They can blend into almost any social context, mirroring others' energy, adjusting their presentation to match the room. But beneath that flexibility is a painful truth. They've become so skilled at being whoever others need them to be that they've lost touch with who they are when no one's watching. Their identity becomes contextual, shifting, never quite solid enough to stand on its own. For the people in their lives, this pattern creates its own kind of pain. Friends might feel frustrated by the one-sidedness of the relationship, always sharing their own struggles but never quite able to access what's happening beneath their quiet friend's surface. They sense there's depth there, but it remains locked behind walls of, "I'm fine," and "don't worry about me." Partners often experience a particular kind of loneliness. They're in a relationship with someone who's physically present but emotionally elusive. They ask what's wrong and receive nothing, even when the air is thick with unspoken pain. They try to get closer and find themselves meeting not resistance exactly, but a kind of deflection, a redirection back to the partner's needs, a minimization of their own experience, a persistent belief that they're too much or not interesting enough to fully show up. Family members may interpret it as distance or lack of care, not realizing it's the opposite, a care so intense it manifests as self-erasure. These individuals often love deeply but express it through service, through listening, through making themselves small enough that others can expand. They give and give, not from abundance but from a desperate hope that if they're useful enough, needed enough, they'll finally be worth keeping. And here's the paradox they live with. The more they hide themselves to maintain connection, the more isolated they become. They want to be known but spend their energy ensuring no one truly knows them. They long for someone to see past the performance, to insist on knowing the real person beneath, but they've constructed their entire relational style around preventing exactly that. In professional settings, this pattern becomes particularly costly. These are often people with brilliant ideas that never get voiced in meetings. They're the ones who send carefully crafted emails at 2 a.m. rather than speaking up in the moment. They watch others take credit for concepts they quietly suggested weeks earlier. They're passed over for promotions not because they lack competence but because they've become so practiced at dimming their light that others don't notice them glowing. They experience what psychologists call imposter syndrome with particular intensity, not the garden variety, maybe I don't deserve this, that most people feel occasionally, but a bone-deep conviction that any success is a fluke, any recognition is a mistake, any positive feedback is people just being nice. They deflect compliments so automatically they don't even realize they're doing it. Oh, it was nothing. Anyone could have done it. I just got lucky. And in studying these individuals, we find something universal. Their struggle illuminates a truth about human psychology itself. We all navigate the tension between the need to be seen and the fear of being truly known. We all carry some version of the question, if people really knew me, would I still be lovable? These people simply embody an extreme version of a common human experience, the anxiety that lives at the intersection of authenticity and acceptance. Their intensity reveals what exists in smaller doses across all of us, that fundamental challenge of believing we're worthy of taking up space, of having needs, of existing fully without apology. But here's what's often missed. This pattern, for all its costs, carries wisdom. These individuals have developed an extraordinary perceptual ability. They can read emotional nuance that others miss entirely. They understand loneliness, marginalization, and the pain of not belonging in ways that make them remarkably equipped to see others who feel invisible. Their sensitivity to being overlooked has made them acutely aware of who gets left out, who gets talked over, who's sitting alone while everyone else connects. Their experience with emotional deprivation has given them a capacity for presence that's increasingly rare. When they do offer their attention, it's complete. They're not half listening while planning their next comment. They're not waiting for their turn to talk. They're genuinely there, holding space with a quality that comes only from knowing what it feels like to have no one hold space for you. It's not a flaw to be fixed, it's an adaptation to be understood. Not broken, just calibrated differently. Their quietness isn't absence, it's a presence that's learned to express itself in whispers because shouting was never safe. For those who recognize this pattern in someone they know, or in themselves, understanding is the first step, but not the destination. These individuals need environments where their contributions are actively invited, not just passively allowed. They benefit from people who notice the pause, the hesitation, the started sentence that trails off, and who gently but persistently create space for completion. You were saying something earlier. I want to hear it. I notice you got interrupted. What were you going to say? What doesn't help is pressure to just speak up or be more confident. That approaches the problem from the wrong direction, treating the symptom rather than the wound. It also doesn't help to make them the center of attention suddenly and dramatically. That triggers the exact alarm system they've spent a lifetime managing. Their healing doesn't look like suddenly becoming loud and visible. It looks like slowly, incrementally believing that their presence isn't a burden, that their thoughts have value independent of whether they're useful to others. That taking up space, emotional, physical, vocal, isn't selfish or dangerous, but simply the natural right of being human. It looks like learning to tolerate the discomfort of being seen without immediately deflecting or minimizing. Like practicing staying in conversations even when the urge to disappear feels overwhelming. Like experimenting with stating needs directly instead of hoping others will intuit them. Like gradually building evidence that contradicts the old narrative, moments when they spoke up and weren't rejected, times when they expressed a need and someone met it, instances when being visible led not to harm but to connection. Slowly, with the right support, they can begin to author a different story. Not by eliminating the pattern, those neural pathways are well worn and won't simply vanish, but by developing new ones alongside them. By building an internal voice that challenges the old script. What if I'm not too much? What if my silence is the actual loss? What if the people who matter want to know me, not just the carefully edited version I think they can handle? This requires what therapists call earned secure attachment, a reparative experience where being seen doesn't lead to the expected rejection but to something else entirely. Acceptance, curiosity, genuine interest. It happens in relationships where someone stays consistent, where they don't leave when the real person starts to emerge, where they demonstrate through repeated action that this person's existence matters. So when you encounter someone like this, remember, they're not choosing difficulty. They're navigating an internal world most people never see. What appears as passivity is actually hypervigilance. Where others see someone who doesn't care or has no opinions, there's often a rich internal life they've simply learned to keep hidden for safety. These are people who've been asked their entire lives to be smaller, quieter, less, and they've become masters of that devastating art. They've learned to need less, to expect less, to be less, until the very act of existing fully feels like a transgression. But watch what happens when they finally encounter someone who sees them, truly sees them, not the performed version but the whole person. Watch how carefully, tentatively, they begin to unfold. Like something that's been compressed for years slowly remembering its original shape. It doesn't happen quickly. Trust takes time to build when it's been repeatedly broken. But when it does happen, there's something almost sacred in witnessing it. A person gradually claiming the space they've always deserved but never believed they could occupy. These are people who carry a particular kind of courage. Not the courage of bold action, but the courage of continuing to hope for connection despite every experience teaching them not to. The courage of surviving profound loneliness while maintaining the capacity to care about others. The courage of believing, against all internal evidence, that maybe, possibly, they might actually be worth seeing. And perhaps that's worth recognizing, not as pathology, but as part of the vast spectrum of human experience. A reminder that visibility isn't just about being noticed, but about the profound human need to be known, accepted, and allowed to exist without apology. That some of the quietest people in any room are carrying the loudest internal battles. That the ones who seem to need the least often need the most. They've just learned not to ask. In a world that rewards volume and visibility, these people represent something countercultural. The possibility that presence doesn't require performance, that mattering doesn't require dominating space, and that the deepest connections often happen not when we're seen by everyone, but when we're truly known by someone.